Good morning and welcome to this week's episode of Iconic Freedom, The Formula. Here we set a standard for accountability and responsibility, the ownership of your choices and your outcomes and everything that follows. Let each care for self and all will be cared for. So when I talk about the formula, we talk about that periodic chart that you see on the various websites that this is posted on, where you create those elements that come together and bring harmony to your life. And if one of those elements in your life is not working, then you extract it and you reevaluate it and, again, bring that harmony to your life. You can't live unscripted if you're not even aware that you're following a script, right? And I think that's where most people are, or at least it appears that way. So wrapping up this series on scripts, we want to examine the unexamined life. Not living a scripted life isn't because you're incapable, but because I think most people don't realize that they've never actually examined the life that they're living. I know for sure that that was a part of my own life, is that I thought that, when things happened and then didn't go my way, that, I would look back and go, oh, wow, that's, I'm bumping into the world. But when things went my way, I didn't evaluate that either, which I thought was, very interesting in retrospect, that, you look at all the things that don't go right, but you don't examine even the things that go correct. And I think what happens is most people, they're just reacting and they're adjusting and, they're explaining, but I don't think that they're seeing what's going on. I think there's a fundamental requirement for change, and that fundamental is self-awareness. And I've brought that up several times, and I really want to drive that point home because I think that it is the basis of everything that's going to happen in life. If you have no self-awareness, then the reality is, right, nothing is going to change. You can move, you can shift environments, you can change your job, your relationship, your location, whatever it is. But if you don't see what's driving your choices, if you don't understand your motivations, you'll recreate the same patterns in a different setting. And it will feel like everything just keeps happening to you, right? Instead of because of you. But there's a reality shift, and I know I've said this before. You can't know where you're going if you don't know what you're doing. And I think that lands differently now after all of these podcasts that you've, journeyed down with me to change your own life, to view your own life differently, to see reality, be out of emotion. And you start to understand that, the reality, the emotion, separating that, realizing its indicator and that it's not a place to live, all that kind of good stuff. You can't know where you're going if you don't know what you're doing, if you don't ask yourself the why questions. And it's only to understand things for yourself, not to scam yourself. I mean, you can if you want, but no need, right, at this point. And I think most people, they don't know where they're going. Not really, because they're not actually looking at what they're doing. They're operating from a habit or from some emotion or an assumption, and it's all inside of a script that they never questioned. So to live unscripted requires something most people avoid: an honest examination of self, your choices, your motivations, your self-interest, because until those are seen clearly, they're not being directed. Script directed. See what I did there? They're just being run. It's just like a program that's, like the Matrix. And this is where it gets uncomfortable for people, is that if you don't acknowledge your bias, how it shapes what you see, how it justifies what you do, then you're not making objective choices. You're defending a perspective you didn't even consciously choose. And from there, every outcome feels external. And that piece is huge in terms of understanding how life is directed by you. Because the self-inflicted victimization, without self-awareness, a person will always experience life as a victim of circumstance. And not because you are a victim of circumstance, but because you can't see your role in what's unfolding. You can't own your contribution. And when you can't see your role, you can't change the outcome. You can't change your future choices. So what follows isn't bad luck. It's just the repetition of the self-inflicted victimization because you're not examining your contribution. I've had a lot of that lately in my job where I've had to point it out to people that, hey, it's great that you've mentioned this about a situation, blah, blah, blah. What was your contribution? And it's funny how people look at you like you're, from another planet. What do you mean, my contribution? It's like, you think that this is just happening, right? That you play no part in this. It's like, but you do. And people don't always realize that you play a part in what you do and what you don't do. And I think this is a part that people, probably don't consider is you can be successful, which is true, and still lack awareness. You can be successful in business or in a marriage. I mean, there's all these different things that it can look like you're successful, but you can still lack awareness. You can build wealth and status and influence and still be operating inside unexamined patterns, which means you'll never know the full extent of what you could have achieved in life. Not because opportunity wasn't there, but because awareness was not. Living unscripted isn't about being unpredictable. It's about being aware of what you're doing, aware of why you're doing it, what's driving the choice, and what you're creating as a result. And from there, you're no longer reacting to life. You're participating in it continuously. You're noticing, you're paying attention to choice from your self-interest, your motivation, which means I own the choice. That's your responsibility. You're living the formula. Then the outcome, that's your accountability and everything that follows, part of the formula. At some point, something is going to change, and you will stop asking, why does this keep happening to me? And you start asking, what am I doing that keeps creating this? And that's the shift. This is such an important point, is when you move to this place, why does this keep happening to me? And you move to, what am I doing that keeps creating this? What is my self-interest? What's my motivation? Then that's where the shift is going to start to happen. From circumstance to choice, from reaction to responsibility, from living inside a script to living in real time. So here's the question to sit with during this week. Where in your life are you still moving without actually seeing what you're doing? And then what might change if you brought real awareness to it? So where in your life are you still moving without actually seeing what you're doing? And then what might change if you brought real awareness to whatever it is that you're doing? You can't know where you're going if you don't know what you're doing. Okay, hit that like button if you would. Share it with your family and friends. You never know how it might support them in their endeavor. All the fun links are below, and if you're inclined, feel free to subscribe on Buzzsprout. I am on X and Truth Social, TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram. The link to my newest book, The Christmas Cookie, Stories from the Counter, is listed below. I'd be grateful and honored if you chose to pick up a copy. It's a collection of heartwarming stories that I quietly say unfold the very principles that we talk about here each week. And until next time, stay sharp, stay sovereign, and as always, remember, let each care for self, and all will be cared for. Make it a great week.